8:55 local time. The Strait of Hormuz, April 2026. An aircraft the United States Air Force has been trying to retire for more than a decade is hunting in the waters between Iran and Oman. It is slow, it is old, it flies low. It was designed in the 1970s to kill Soviet tanks in the fields of Germany. Every modernization review, every budget cycle, every Air Force doctrine update for the last 15 years has recommended taking it out of service. And right now, it is the single most effective American aircraft operating over the Strait of Hormuz, the A-10 Thunderbolt II, the Warthog. The Pentagon just extended its service life by 3 more years, specifically because of what it is doing in the Persian Gulf. The Air Force quietly reversed a retirement plan Congress had already approved, and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane announced its role from the Pentagon briefing room himself. Here is why an aircraft nobody wanted to keep is now the key to reopening the most important waterway on Earth. To understand why the A-10 is playing this role, you need to understand the specific problem the U.S. military faced after Operation Epic Fury began on February 28th. The strait was closed, not by Iranian warships, not by submarines, not by ballistic missiles, by small, fast, agile vessels that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has spent decades perfecting for exactly this kind of conflict. Fast attack watercraft, mine-laying boats, swarming vessels designed to overwhelm larger warships, small enough to hide in coastal inlets, fast enough to evade radar cueing, numerous enough that even if a U.S. destroyer sinks 10 of them, 10 more emerge from the next fishing harbor the following morning. This is a fundamentally different kind of naval warfare, and conventional American air power was not optimized for it. An F-35 B stealth fighter flying at 40,000 feet is designed to penetrate contested airspace and strike high-value fixed targets. It is not designed to loiter at low altitude, chasing small boats through coastal shallows. An F-A-18 Super Hornet off a carrier has limited time on station before it needs to refuel from a tanker. A B-2 strategic bomber is not going to waste a multi-million-dollar mission on a fiberglass skiff. Even the Apache helicopters that eventually flew alongside the A-10 in this campaign were never meant to carry the primary maritime hunting role. They can strike, they cannot loiter the way the mission demanded. What the U.S. military actually needed was something different, an aircraft that could fly low over the water, loiter for hours above a known transit corridor, carry enough firepower to destroy small maritime targets repeatedly on the same sortie, survive in contested airspace without requiring the fuel tempo of a full carrier air wing. That aircraft already existed. It was just supposed to be retired. The A-10 Thunderbolt II was designed for one mission: kill Soviet armor in close air support of NATO ground troops in a European ground war that never happened. Everything about its design serves that original mission in a way that turns out to be remarkably well suited to hunting fast attack boats in the Strait of Hormuz. The airframe is built around a 30mm GAU 8 Avenger rotary cannon, 7 barrels, depleted uranium rounds, a cyclic rate of 3,900 rounds per minute, originally engineered to punch through the frontal armor of a T-72 at combat range. Against an Iranian fast attack boat, the same weapon is catastrophically overmatched. The targets have no armor, no meaningful defensive systems, a fiberglass or light aluminum hull that a single GAU-8 burst can cut in half. One gun, run across a formation of speedboats, can destroy multiple vessels simultaneously. The A-10 can carry up to 16,000 pounds of external ordnance across 11 hardpoints, a GM-65 Maverick missiles, Hydra 70 rocket pods, laser-guided bombs, sidewinders for self-defense, more firepower on every sword eye than most aircraft twice its size, but the capability that actually matters most over Hormuz is none of those. It is loiter time. CENTCOM released a direct statement on exactly this point. The A-10 Thunderbolt II can loiter for hours. standing by and ready to execute a mission whenever needed. Hours, not minutes, not one pass and gone. Hours overhead the strait, waiting for Iranian fast attack boats to emerge from cover, waiting for mine-laying watercraft to appear on the water, ready to engage the moment a target presents itself. No other aircraft in the current U.S. inventory does this combination of long loiter, massive firepower, and low-altitude maritime hunting. The F-35 cannot. The F/A-18 cannot. Even the AH-64 Apache attack helicopters that have been deployed alongside the A-10 in this mission cannot match the Warthog's time on station. The A-10 is the only aircraft the United States has that was accidentally perfect for this job. On March 19th, Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane made it official from the Pentagon briefing room. His exact words: "The A-10 Warthog is now in the fight across the southern flank and is hunting and killing fast attack watercraft in the Straits of Hormuz." That announcement marked the first operational deployment of the A-10 in a Gulf maritime combat mission in the aircraft's entire service history, built for European tank warfare, repurposed for hunting speedboats in the Persian Gulf almost 50 years later. Since that announcement, the mission has expanded significantly. CENTCOM released combat footage of a 10s and AH-64 Apache helicopters patrolling the strait in mixed formations. The operation has destroyed more than 120 Iranian naval vessels and 44 mine-laying watercraft since February 28th, according to figures General Kane provided from the same briefing room. 120 vessels, 44 mine layers, and the numbers keep rising. Since a full naval blockade of the strait began on April 13th, A-10 and Apache patrols have turned back 23 additional vessels attempting to transit the waterway under IRGC escort. This is not a supporting role. This is the primary American air capability actively degrading Iran's ability to keep the strait closed. Additional A-10 squadrons have been arriving in theater throughout March. Photos confirmed by defense outlets show the 107th Fighter Squadron deployed into the region on March 29th. The United States is not just using the A-10s that were already positioned in theater when the strait closed. It is actively reinforcing the Warthog presence specifically for this campaign. The A-10 mission over Hormuz has not been without cost. On April 3rd, an A-10 Thunderbolt II crashed near the Strait of Hormuz. The same day, an F-15E Strike Eagle was shot down over Iranian territory. 2 aircraft lost on the same date in the same theater. Iranian state media reported the A-10 had been targeted in southern waters near the strait. The pilot ejected and was subsequently rescued by U.S. maritime assets operating in the area. The airframe itself was not recovered. That loss matters for 2 reasons. First, it confirms that even the A-10, specifically designed to survive in contested airspace, is not immune to modern air defenses. The titanium bathtub, the redundant hydraulics, the high-mounted engines, none of it makes the airframe untouchable. Iran's IRGC has developed capabilities that can reach U.S. aircraft operating at low altitude in the maritime environment. Second, the loss explains why the Air Force reversed course on retirement. Losing 1 aircraft was acceptable to the Pentagon. Losing the capability the A-10 provides was not. On April 20th, just days ago, Air Force Secretary Troy Mink announced that the A-10 Thunderbolt II platform would be extended through 2030. His stated reason: preserving combat power as the defense industrial base works to increase combat aircraft production. That single sentence reversed more than a decade of Air Force policy. The fiscal 2026 National Defense Authorization Act had already mandated 103 A-10s remain in service through September 2026, with full retirement scheduled by the end of 2029. That retirement timeline was the product of 15 years of planning. Every Air Force leadership rotation had reaffirmed it. Every budget justification had priced around it. That timeline just got extended 3 more years, not because of a change in doctrine, not because of a new threat assessment, specifically because of what the A-10 has proven it can do in the Hormuz campaign. The strategic logic of the A-10 mission comes down to one word: sustainability. Iran's approach to closing the strait was never going to be broken by a single spectacular strike. The Iranian mine-laying capability, the fast attack boat swarms, the IRGC's decades of preparation for maritime denial. None of that collapses because of one dramatic operation. It collapses through attrition, boat by boat, mine layer by mine layer. Every IRGC vessel that attempts to reinforce the blockade gets destroyed by an A-10 loitering overhead. Every mine-laying run gets interrupted before the cargo hits the water. Every attempt to move more hardware into the strait gets countered before it reaches its objective. This is what sustained air operations over a contested maritime environment actually look like. And the A-10 is the only aircraft the United States has that can sustain this tempo affordably. An F-35 sortie flown to destroy a $50,000 Iranian speedboat costs more in fuel, maintenance, and airframe hours than the target itself. An A-10 sortie does not. When the mission is not one strike but weeks of continuous attrition. That cost ratio is the difference between a sustainable campaign and an unsustainable one. The announcement on March 30th that IRGC Navy Commander Brigadier General Alireza Tangsiri had been killed is part of the same picture. Tangsiri had been the public face of Iran's successful effort to keep the strait closed. His death was not an accident. It was the result of sustained pressure on the Iranian naval command structure that the A-10 and Apache operations have enabled. The key to opening the strait was never one dramatic strike on Karg Island, never one massive naval engagement. It was going to be the slow, grinding, persistent degradation of Iran's ability to maintain the blockade. And that mission, more than any other capability in the American arsenal, belongs to the A-10 Warthog. An aircraft the Air Force tried to retire for 15 years just got extended through 2030. Because when the United States actually needed to reopen the most important waterway on Earth, it turned out the platform best suited for the job was not the stealth fighter, not the carrier air wing, not the strategic bomber, not the Virginia-class submarine. It was the Warthog, slow, ugly, old, built for a war that never happened, designed in the 1970s for a European battlefield that never materialized, kept alive through 4 decades of budget fights and retirement attempts, defended by a stubborn community of pilots and maintainers who insisted the aircraft still had a mission, against 2 generations of Air Force leadership who insisted it did not. And in April 2026, above the Strait of Hormuz, those pilots and maintainers were proven right. 120 Iranian vessels destroyed, 44 mine-laying boats eliminated, 23 ships turned back since April 13th, 1 A-10 lost in combat, 1 Iranian naval commander killed. A strait that slowly, boat by boat, sortie by sortie, is being pulled back from Iranian control by an aircraft nobody in the Pentagon wanted to keep. The Marines are still on USS Tripoli. The destroyers are still in position. The submarines are still silent in the Gulf. But the aircraft doing the actual work of reopening the strait is flying low and slow over the water, 30mm cannon barrels still smoking from the last gun run, loitering for hours, hunting the next target. The A-10 was never supposed to be here, and right now, it is the only thing that can do this job.